Pull harder, brothers!
Hello friends, I'm very happy to see you here. Today I want to tell you a story that begins deep under the water in a world that humans rarely see. A story about how nature creates one of the most beautiful and mysterious treasures on Earth. Pearls. When we see a pearl necklace in a jewelry store window, it looks perfect. Smooth glowing spheres, a soft shimmering light, something elegant and almost magical. But very few people think about the fact that every real pearl is the result of a long and sometimes dramatic process that happens inside an ordinary seashell. And the most surprising thing is that pearls are not created because nature wants to give people jewelry. They appear as a response to a problem. Imagine the ocean. Warm water, gentle waves, sandy seabeds. On the bottom lie shells of mollusks, oysters. They live quiet and slow lives, filtering water and slowly opening and closing their shells. One day, however, a tiny grain of sand might slip inside the shell, or a microscopic parasite, or some other foreign object. For the oyster, this becomes a problem. Its soft body is extremely sensitive, and any foreign particle causes irritation. The oyster cannot simply remove the grain of sand, so it begins to protect itself in the only way it can. It covers the irritating object with layers of a special substance, nacre, also known as mother of pearl. First one layer, then another, then another. Over time, these layers begin forming a smooth, shining sphere, and that is how a pearl is born. But in nature, this happens very rarely. Out of thousands of oysters, perhaps only one may produce a natural pearl. That is why in ancient times, pearls were considered one of the rarest treasures on Earth. For thousands of years, people dived into the ocean hoping to find these natural miracles. And these searches were incredibly dangerous. Because before modern technology existed, pearl divers descended into the water without oxygen tanks. They simply held their breath. But the real story of pearl diving is even more dramatic, and to understand it, we must travel back in time, to the era when people risk their lives every day in search of the ocean's hidden treasure. And that is exactly what we will talk about next. For thousands of years, pearl diving was considered one of the most dangerous professions in the world. Some of the most famous pearl divers lived in the Persian Gulf, Japan, and across islands of the Indian Ocean. These divers descended into the sea dozens of times a day, hoping to collect oysters that might contain pearls. They had no oxygen tanks, no modern diving masks. Sometimes they did not even have proper eye protection. Before diving, a diver would take a deep breath and tie a heavy stone to his leg. The stone helped him sink quickly to the seabed. Sometimes the depth reached 20 meters. On the ocean floor, he quickly gathered oysters into a bag. Then he rushed back to the surface before his air ran out. The entire dive might last only 1 minute, sometimes a minute and a half. Then he would dive again, and again, and again. Some divers made up to 50 dives a day. But the danger was not only the depth. The waters were filled with sharks, poisonous jellyfish, dangerous sea snakes, and the pressure underwater could cause severe pain in the ears and lungs. All of this just for the chance of finding a single pearl. Even if a diver collected dozens of oysters, success was never guaranteed. Most oysters contained nothing. Sometimes entire boats returned with hundreds of shells and not a single pearl. But if a pearl was discovered, it could change everything. In ancient times, perfect pearls were worth enormous fortunes. They were worn by kings, emperors and sultans. Pearls decorated crowns, royal garments, and ceremonial weapons. They became symbols of power, beauty, and wealth. For centuries, people dreamed of learning how to create pearls themselves, and eventually, that dream became reality. In the early 20th century, a Japanese entrepreneur named Kokichi Mikimoto developed a method for cultivating pearls. Scientists learned how to carefully place a small nucleus inside an oyster. The oyster then began covering it with nacre, exactly the same way it would in nature. After several years, a pearl formed inside the shell. This discovery changed the pearl industry forever. It marked the beginning of a new era, the era of cultured pearls. But even today, natural pearls remain extremely rare. And that rarity is exactly what makes them so fascinating. Because every pearl is truly a small miracle of nature. Today, most pearls in the world are grown on specialized pearl farms. These farms can be found in Japan, Australia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The process of growing pearls can take several years. Farmers carefully place a small nucleus inside the oyster. Then the oysters are returned to the sea. There they continue living their natural lives. Year after year, the oyster covers the nucleus with layers of nacre. Sometimes the process takes 2 years, sometimes 5, sometimes even longer. But even on pearl farms, the results are never completely predictable. Some pearls grow perfectly round, some become irregular shapes, some oysters produce no pearl at all. That is why every real pearl remains unique. No two pearls are exactly the same. Each one has its own color, shape, and shine. Some pearls are white, some are pink, some are golden, and some are even deep black. But perhaps the most fascinating part of this story is what a pearl actually represents. It is not just a gemstone. It is the result of a living creature protecting itself. Something that begins as irritation eventually becomes beauty. And perhaps that is why pearls have always carried such powerful symbolism. They remind us that sometimes the most beautiful things in life are created from difficulty. That even a tiny grain of sand can one day transform into a treasure. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next story.